Hello everyone. So today I will try to tell you a bit about designing the business for your game, because the same like me, most of you probably started your work into video game industry but thinking about how to design the good games or great games or the best possible games. But unfortunately, whenever it came for me, then I wanted to design my game, it ultimately appeared that my design suffers from the bad business decisions or from business mistakes that I was doing or my company was doing. So today I will try to switch from talking about the design and I will try to give you some hints on the business side. So first of all, the Farm 51 is the company that has been founded in 2005, and here is the small part of portfolio of the projects that we have been already working on. The most important projects today are on the left. Get Even is the game that was released last year. World War III is the game that is released this year, and it will be released again next year when leaving early access on Steam. And Chernobylite is the game that I am personally working on recently. So first of all, the picture that you saw on the initial page, this one, is actually and unfortunately not so random, because this is how I see the business side of the video game development today. Like everything is a bit gray, everything looks a bit gray, everything looks dark, and everything feels a bit dangerous. Ultimately, being indie developer is about staying alive in the survival environment. That's how I feel. It's not I'm making the game like this because of it. It's like when I was thinking about how to figure out staying alive in the indie game development, then first of all it's a survival horror kind of game. So I will try to give you some tips about how to survive this tricky part. So first of all, when you start to think about your business, you probably should not think first about how much money I would like to earn or how big art achievement I would like to make. Obviously, it should be deep in your heart. But if you think about managing your team and managing your project, you should first of all think about resources. And by resources, I mean everything what is needed to make your game succeed. First of all, resources are your office. Second is your team. Third, it's the money you need to spend on all extra expenses like buying hardware, buying software, buying engine licenses, to pay extra outsourcers. Everything that required you to have something and exchange into something, this is your resource. What is important for the indie developer, they often say, we don't need resources because it's me and my two friends and we will sit in front of our computer and we will make a game. Okay, working? Yes, it's working. So we'll make a game and we don't need any money, we'll just sit and code and make the art, and ultimately when we spend some time, we'll make a game and we'll be famous or we'll earn money or both. So this is fake concept because still your time is your resource. Somebody has to pay for your electricity that you are using to your computer, somebody has to pay for the food you are eating, somebody has to pay for the room you are renting or you are living in. Even if these are your parents' resources are also somehow limited. One day they will tell you, you should stop making this stupid game, you should get to the serious work. I know it, I was in the same situation many years ago. And I had to switch from making amateurish video games for a moment to start earning some money, then to be able to make money on making the video games. So first of all, amount of the resources that you need is the crucial element of designing of your business. And I'm not saying what exactly it has to be because it depends on your situation, on your goals, on your projects and so on. But anyway, what you need to start designing your business is to list very honestly all the resources you need to make your game. And second, it's about fighting with the fire you can expect. And I mean, you need to be prepared that no matter how well you have planned your design and no matter how well you have planned your business, you will fail on this. I can guarantee that first time you will fail and probably most of the next time you will also fail. I'm not saying you will fail by making a bad game, but you will fail on your planning. If you assume I need this in certain amount, in certain time, then you can be sure that you will not fully execute this plan because every time something will happen, every time you will need to adjust your plans. So you need to be always ready to dynamically adjust your plans, and by the end you need to be ready to change it for the worst situation, because originally at the beginning you are usually assuming positive outcome, like I need to spend 6 months working on this game, I need to have 2 people, I need to have this engine, I need to have this model or something like this. Then during your development you will see that you need more people, or you need more time, or you need more models, or you need other model because first 3D model you got from some artist is not looking good or something like this. Anyway, you always need to be ready for worse. And third of all, it's all about building the relationships, because even if you are alone, even if you are one person studio, you still need to build a relationship with your customers or your publishers or the players or your social community or whoever else is your target, whoever you are making this game for. You need to build this relationship and you need to maintain this relationship, because building a relationship starts not when the game is finished and when you are releasing it, but first of all you need to build a relationship with your team members, and if you are not feeling good working with your team members, then usually your game and your business won't be good as well. So anyway, don't forget about building the relationship with whoever you need to work for or whoever you need to make a game for. So I will go briefly through few of the case studies. I just about, let's say, 1 minute per every project that I have to discuss. So first project that we started to do at the Farm 51 in 2005 was the game called Necrovision. The idea of this game was coming from the fact that me and my friends who were starting the company were working before in the People Can Fly, the studio that released Painkiller and Bulletstorm, and we wanted to create games in similar style to Painkiller. So we decided, okay, we will make a hardcore first-person shooter for the very, very tough gameplay and very hard level of, let's say, gore and very mature kind of game in terms of violence and hardcore feeling of the game. So the idea back in time was quite okay, but we knew from the very beginning that we are not independent. And you also need to assume this often, that you are not independent. We simply didn't have any money to make this project. And we knew, we have calculated that we need this amount of people, we need this amount of models, this amount of levels and everything else. We have done a plan for the game. We just knew we cannot execute this game because, or we cannot execute this plan because we simply have no resource, no decay resource, which is money for the development. So we approached the publisher. We had only very tiny amount of money to make a demo, playable demo, and then we have approached the publisher. We were all the time not independent. We were dependent on the publisher, but we could finish our first game and we could release it and we could be happy about the results, even if the game was not perfect and it was not a very huge success, but it was, let's say, a moderate success. It sold like 2, maybe 300,000 of copies, what back in time was quite remarkable. What is important and what I have learned from this project and what was coming up in absolutely every other project later, then no matter how carefully you will assume your timeline and your budget, it usually gets doubled. Either the budget or the timeline or both. So my key rule of planning every next project today is that I need to assume that during the development I need to double my budget, the initial budget. I mean the list of the things I have to do, the list of the things I have to pay for. During the development it has to be doubled. And it's not like I'm bad at planning of the game, because at the same time we have been also planning making a series applications. Series applications is a kind of software that you are doing for the customer in other way the game, and on the series application we have been relatively good on planning. Like when we planned that it will cost this amount of money, it usually costed this amount money. But for the games, for the reiterating the games many times, for changing the game design concept, for adding new concept or new content, for switching from one idea to the other idea many times during the game, it always increased the budget and the time dedicated to the game. So what we did in the meantime, when we needed more money, because that was the issue, we started to do outsource work. That's the other idea of designing your business if you are especially very young and unexperienced in the developer, that you can try to produce assets or produce some small games in work for hire model, meaning there are many publishers and many other developers that need some services. So if you are good on making 3D art, you can make 3D art, or you can make some small games, or you can make different things. Here we even did one casual game, as you see on the right. We did some game for Nintendo DS. We did some assets for the first Witcher game, the top picture. We simply knew that for company to stay alive and to be able to keep working on the other project, we had to find a way to keep financing it. And if we would be not doing these things, that was not very ambitious for us. That was not our goal to spend our lives of making this small project or making these small assets. But at the end of the day, it appeared it was very valuable. And even if right now we are a relatively big company, more than 100 people, and we generally could only stay with the projects that we are developing internally, we still do some work for hire services for the other companies, because usually they give us ability somehow to stabilize our cash flow and to allow us to put or invest more money into the projects that we are developing on our own. So at the summary of this, we have been working on our own game, and we have been working on some other projects in work for hire subjects. So we have switched to another big work for hire project, which was Towards 2, the game released by Reality Pump and Topware a couple of years ago. I'm just mentioning this because it was not our initial goal to switch for this project, but unfortunately the situation on the market changed after Necrovision, because we have released Necrovision, we have released the second part of the Necrovision called Lost Company, and then the whole market somehow collapsed. It was 2009, 2010. There was the global crisis on the market. There was the switching from the retail distribution to digital distribution slowly appearing, and the publishers had problems with, let's say, investing into video games. So Necrovision, even if it was quite successful, this line of game had been cancelled at some point by its publisher, which was 1C Games. And then we simply stand at the point that, okay, we have released the game, we have earned some money on this, but we cannot sustain the company that already grown, and we need to simply start earning money just like that, right here, right now. And then we started to go for the higher profile outsource work, like we dedicated all our team, which was 20 or 30 people back in time, on joining some other developer and doing the co-development of some big games. So here we are not just outsourcers. It was not like just doing some small task. We have been doing almost everything that was included into this project, from the cutscenes, by animation, by models, by level design, by designing new multiplayer maps or stuff like this. So anyway, in some point of our company life, it was very required to go this way, to make much higher profile project, but still it was not our own project. And then you never heard about this game called Inhumator. It's no surprise, because this game was actually a big fail for us. It was a great idea that nobody wanted to buy. The only comment for this is never try to make the game that is based purely on humor, because this game was a kind of comedy, horror comedy, but it was not horror comedy like Evil Dead. It was more like the comedy with elements of horror, like shooting to the skeletons that are laughing and screaming and squeaking, and everything was fun about this. And everybody who played this game was saying, okay, it is fun concept, but whenever we approached to find some publisher or investor for this game, then they were saying, well, but there is no other game that is fully based on the humor, It's simply like we don't know if it will sell. And we are trying even to push it for making some kind of community to convince people that, but you see, this game is fun. And people were playing the game, they were saying it's fun. And ultimately, the end of this was that there is no humorous games on the market, so nobody will accept the mix of the humor with the hardcore first-person shooter. So I will not concern about this that much. It's just a small tip about you need to carefully think about the genre or let's say trying to break any genre, because we have been trying to break some genre and we failed on this. We just made some demo, and then all the assets that have been done for this demo was utilized in some other project, which was actually a good deal. Because then we have been approached by the publisher who bought the rights for the Painkiller series of game, and we make the remake of the game called Painkiller. It was named Painkiller Hell and Damnation. So the good business for us was with this project that, first of all, it was publisher who approached us, not we are approaching publisher. So when somebody is approaching you and he's telling, well, I would like you to make something for me, that you are usually in the better situation to negotiate, or it's the dialogue. Because if you are going to try to convince somebody to get your project, then you need to push harder. When you already got some established position done by doing several projects, not necessarily very successful, then other people or other companies, other parties starts to approach you, and they are ready to believe in you, and they are ready to give you the projects that are, let's say, suitable for your skills. So we made Painkiller Hell and Damnation, and it was actually not very profitable project. It was quite profitable for us, but what was important, it gave us a big leap toward becoming an established developer, because thanks to skills we already have, thanks to support from the publisher, we released the game for all the platforms, meaning PC and both consoles, the previous generation of console, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and then we finally appeared on the market as the developer that every publisher at least knows or recognizes, or every investor believes that, okay, they have proven they can do something. And it wasn't the situation before. Before, we always have had to keep convincing everybody that we can make the game and this game can be good. From this point, there was no discussion if we can make a game or if this can be good or relatively good. The only issue is how we will push further, or what are the other plans, what are the situation that is driving us towards. So the next project we started to do was called Deadfall Adventures. And it was a kind of Indiana Jones first-person shooter, something like Uncharted, just done in the King Solomon's Mine and Richard Chamberlain and this kind of stuff style. So this game, unfortunately, was not a success. It was not the total failure, but we couldn't call it a success because we already grew as the company, and we were already very ambitious, and we believed we can compete with the best players in the video game market. What was actually not the true, because ultimately there was a lot of market circumstances that prevented us from reaching the success, including our own situation, like the development of the game was prolonging. It was growing, the game was looking better, there was more content into the game, but still we should release this game much earlier, because when we have released it on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, there were already new consoles on the market. There was already appearing PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and then simply the console sales was almost nothing, and the most cost of making this game was for doing the console game, and PC version sold relatively well, but it was not enough to cover all the cost of development, which was at this time quite expensive. So then we decided that we'll switch to a bit more of indie approach. Like we have designed a game called Get Even that was supposed to be very minimalistic. Like Deadfall Adventures was like a Hollywood kind of movie with explosion, with noises, with the fantasy, with the monsters and everything else. And Get Even was more like the indie or super indie experience. Like there was no much of the spectacular things going on. It was all based on the story, on the mood, on the music, on the dialogues, on the things that we could done cheaper. So the game was received very well. Unfortunately, it didn't sell well, and this is the advice. You need to work carefully with your publisher, how you plan to market your games, because forget even, unfortunately, if this game had a very good reviews, it didn't sell really well because people were not noticing it, because the marketing campaign for the game was not big enough or not strong enough to build the, let's say, information about this project, to deliver enough information that this game is releasing. And the game was released, the game was delayed, release of the game was delayed because of some accidental situation that was out of our control, and then the business for this game for our company was good enough because we have been paid fully by the publisher, but the sales of the game for the publisher especially was not good enough. And then I will just mention the project that we have just released 1 month ago. It's called World War III. This is the game that we have been developing in the meantime, parallelly to Get Even. However, this time we have decided that we want to go for self-publishing, and we will fight as hard as possible to release this game on our own. And thanks to this, we have been in control of everything, of marketing, of community management, of the release date, and everything else. And we made a lot of mistakes, but ultimately this game was the biggest success for our company, because we have been able to keep optimizing the marketing and business situation around this project to make it released in the best possible moment, in the best possible way, at least for our company. So my advice today is, as long as you have enough money to keep your project working on, and as long as you can do marketing on your own and publishing side, at least digital publishing on your own, the best scenario today, at least for us, is to keep trying as much as possible internally, and go for the other partners, for the distributors or for the publishers, not earlier when you have your project finished or when you have it ready to not being changed constantly in terms of getting feedback and circular simulation. So that's all about my presentation. I didn't mention the project called Chernobylite because this will be announced fully next year, but right now I'm open to hear your questions.
Thank you. Raise your hands, please. Okay, I saw your hand. Do you have a question?
Hello, good day. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have a small question. You know, there is a website called Steam Charts. How accurate is it compared to the sales of World War III? You should, as a developer insider, should know this information. Can we trust that website when we are analyzing, for example, the success of the company, the success of your project, or not?
Well, generally, we are a public company, so I cannot tell you without making an official statement how accurate is it, but I can say it can be used as the indicator. Like generally, if they are showing you some frames, or if you try to do, let's say, average line for different numbers they are showing you, you can take it as an indicator. Like it shows you the trends. It shows you if the game is increasing sales, decreasing sales, if it is in the margin of the sales usually. But let's say that for some of the project we have been released, it was actually very inaccurate. And we had some communication problems because people were telling us, well, this game is selling much better, so why are you telling it's not selling well? Or opposite, why are you saying this game is selling well? Because it shows Steam Spy or Steam Charts or whatever, it shows that it's much worse situation. So I would rather use it for the internal analysis of, you know, especially the competition, because if you go by average, if you follow many examples, then you can say by analyzing many examples, you can gather so valuable data. But you should not probably try to stick to one specific case of one game and saying, oh, I could do this or I should do this because this game shows this kind of sales or these kinds of users or these kinds of players. What I can say, what is usually accurate is number of people playing the game or stuff like this, but the sales number and other things are not very accurate.
One of your projects failed because you were not keeping in mind the new generation of consoles. How did this happen? Why wasn't you keeping in mind that new generation of consoles is coming up and you should maybe prepare your project for this generation new one, or just do not make it for PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360?
Generally the issue is that if you are making a relatively big project, making for 2 or 3 years, you have absolutely no idea what market will be in the next 2 or 3 years. It's not just about the consoles or platforms, it's generally about the situation. So with Deadfall Adventures, the issue was that actually the bigger issue was delaying the game, because we knew that new generation of the console is coming. We knew it will be somehow 2013, 2014. So we were assuming, okay, if we release this game in 2012, it will be perfect. But unfortunately, we got 1 year of delay with the Xbox version, another year of delay with the PlayStation 3 version. So that's one of the things. Second is, usually you can try to rely on the existing user base of the console owners. For example, today, we all know that new console will appear in the next 2 years or maybe even sooner. But today I would not say you shouldn't develop game for X1 or PS4, because this console has still an extremely big user base that could be valuable for us. But if you are making the game like Deadfall Adventures that had several flaws, I would say, first of all, this game had low Metacritic. What was the problem? Because console users are usually buying the game based on the Metacritic, not on the rankings in the store. Because when there's physical distribution, they can only check Metacritic. And the issue is that PC version was selling well because user score on Steam, which was mostly digital, was quite high, like it was 70-something%. So people were achieving this game as quite good. But on the consoles, we had the situation like every review in the press was like, oh, what this game is similar to? It's similar to Uncharted, but it has worse animation, worse pacing, worse special effects, worse optimization, everything else. So we need to cut 10% for each of the factors, and then the notes for the console version was 40 or 50%. And when the game is 40 or 50% on Metacritic, then nobody will buy it. So there is more complicated situation, but I believe if this game was really good, if it had really high scores, then it probably sell well even on the old consoles. But there was several things that prevented it from selling well.
Hi, thank you for your story. You said that you published World War III by yourself. Does that mean that you built marketing, all marketing yourself, and you built inside your company marketing like team? Do you have any tips how to build marketing team from scratch?
Yes, it's very important. I should mention this. It's good you raise this question because it's also very crucial. So first of all, marketing is not as hard as people believe it is. You need usually to have 1 or 2 or 3 people in your team to make a good marketing. I'm pretty convinced no matter of how big games are you making, unless you are making new Star Wars or something like this. But let's say you are making an indie game. And no matter if your team is 10 people or 20 people or 30 people, today having access to social medias, having access to the PR agencies, having access to the communities forums and everything else, you can do really good marketing having 2 or 3 people. For World War III, the whole marketing team was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 people, and it was mostly because we need one person extra who is Russian speaker to develop the Russian communities. And we had one person extra for managing the events because we have been doing a lot of events. But for my project, Chernobylite, I'm not planning to increasing the marketing team size for more than 2 or 3 people. But these people had to know what they are doing.
So I have a question about your current project, World War III. When you make a decision that you want to go, especially in this I say, art style and in this style of games, because I'm very big fan of Battlefield, but I know that production cycle of this game is quite big. So, and when you decide to go on the direct competition with Battlefield, maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, and at that time Battlefield was on the same place, like on the current, not in the past or in the futuristic mode. It was on the like modern time, and you're doing the game with the same style. Why you made this decision, and when it was made?
So we made this decision actually not as an idea of getting into direct competition with Battlefield, but into getting on indirect competition. Meaning, we knew already that next Battlefield, meaning Battlefield 1, will be not modern time.
So you knew that information already?
It was, at some point it was clear it will be like this, and it just justified that we will try to do this. But the other thing is that we have been working closely with the military industry in Poland. We have been doing military simulators, and there was idea like, let's make the game which will be a bit more realistic than Battlefield or Call of Duty, and which is supposed to have a really great niche. We don't consider World War III as the mainstream project. It's still like a bit of niche project for the hardcore players, but because of Battlefield and Call of Duty were going into a different style and art direction and different world settings, then it increased our user base. We actually were expecting that this game will have smaller niche and will have smaller user base, but thanks to what was happening on the Battlefield or Call of Duty side, it increased actually our community, and then we knew even more that it's a right decision.
Okay, so I already heard that you are going to consoles after PC market?
We hope, we are planning to go for the console, but it's still not confirmed yet.
Okay, so and after, okay, you said that it's not confirmed, but here is the question. After Xbox and PlayStation 4, any possibility to put this game on Nintendo Switch?
If only optimization will allow this, it won't be easy, but we would like to.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you, Van.